Good evening and welcome again to Public Perspective. I'm your host, Kevin McDermott, and regular viewers of our show will know that we spend a lot of time on the show talking about current events, public policy. Well, tonight we'll be delving into something quite different. We're going into the world of fantasy tonight because our guests tonight, Lisa and Jenny Hale, pop costumers, pop culture costumers, right? So we have a number of things to display. We'll get to that a little later, but I want to ask you, just to get started, how did you get here? how did this happen?
I would say...
Actually, I studied fashion design in college, and I was working on, just making my own patterns and making garments and everything, and then eventually, maybe a couple years after I graduated, I got into costume design, and then it was like maybe a couple years after, I think after I started doing costume design, she had mentioned something about going to a convention, and if you want to...
Oh yeah, so my library hired a performer, and I found out through him about these conventions. I'm like, oh.
Like?
Yeah, like comic book.
Comic-Con.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, Comic-Con. And ever since I was little, because we were always into the nerddom and fandoms, like Star Wars and Star Trek, probably the first one that we ever were fans of. And I always thought it was just about Star Trek, Star Trek conventions. And I was always terrified because how would you feel if a Klingon started walking towards you? And like, that's too daunting for me. But then through this performer, I found out he goes to conventions, and I thought it was so cool. And I go, Lisa, I think I messaged you on either Facebook or email, and had, kind of was a springboard to say, hey, let's try it and see what happens, You
mean, try going to the conventions.
Yeah,
yeah. Right, and your sisters, so you could watch out for each other, right?
Yeah,
Those Klingons got out.
Know who your buddy is. We got a buddy system.
Which basically ended up happening.
Right.
We were in the car, and we were dressed up as, I think our very first costumes were the red and white queen from Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. Yeah. So we started the bar. We set the bar way up here. Well, she started
That was kind of daunting in and of itself, because I was just like, okay, I guess I'm gonna do this, and like immediately, actually, I think our dad, he dropped us off at the convention because like, oh, I've never done this before, so he dropped us off, and I'm like, the whole time I was really nervous and just like, oh my God, are they gonna like what I did? I'm like, are people gonna like ridicule me, or?
Well, you're never gonna know.
So as soon as we stepped out, actually no, even before we got out of the car and just started walking on the sidewalk, people are like, oh, can I get your picture? Can I get your picture? I'm like, whoa, this is weird. It's like paparazzi.
I guess they like us.
I guess they like us. Or so I'm like, oh my God.
So Jenny, did you have experience in making costumes?
I didn't. My background is in web and graphic design, and I'm a reader and like a professional student, but I'm also a tinkerer. So I've always been making and creating, and boy, one of the first things I attempted to make or tried to was not that particular headdress from Star Wars, but another Queen Amidala headdress. And I just had cardboard in front of me, and I remember it was Christmas time too, because just the ambiance. And I just looked at this two-dimensional cardboard mess in front of me. Like, I remember going, I can't do it. I can't do it. I just don't know how. And she, around the same time, like 1999 when it came out, the Phantom Menace, and she was trying to brain how she would make the costume, the actual red garment, and she just maybe drew it.
Yeah, I kind of had a similar experience where I just drew the costume, like, okay, all these lines, and this goes there, and that detail looks like that. And then I looked at my drawing, I'm like, I'm not even that experienced enough to like know what the heck I'm doing here. So
I'll never be able to
it
build
was
this.
like, what was it? You gave me a book, it was like 2005 of like costuming the Star Wars galaxy, and about that time I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing, and like I'm not that good yet. And I guess it took maybe about, maybe like 9 years until I actually made the garment itself, and just like, oh my gosh, the internet is so great, because like there's all these like this like plethora of information, and there's even this Star Wars costuming group where like they have really really good screen accurate costumes from any kind of character in the universe, and which we are actually part of. It's called the Rebel Legion.
Oh.
There's also another one called the 501st or Vader's Fist. It's like the bad guys.
Yeah.
So
Bad guys.
so yeah, so that was pretty intense.
So are there certain groups that make the bad guy costumes and certain other groups that make the good guy
Yeah,
costumes?
yeah.
Mhm.
Is
I-
there much
like,
crossover, or is
the-
it like kind of one or the
there
other?
are
Might be a
some
little
gray
bit.
areas a little bit, because I do another costume from Star Wars, and she's a bounty hunter, and you know, some bounty hunters you don't know which one it belongs to. Like there'll be a, like for example,
yeah, Princess Leia.
Princess Leia's bounty hunters. Like, is she a rebel? Is she the good guy? But because she's a bounty hunter, she could also be, you know,
A bad guy.
Yeah,
Right.
Vader's hand or whatever it's
Oh,
called.
Vader's daughter.
Yeah, Vader. Well, yeah, there you go.
So I take it that you make these things and people buy them from you, right?
Yeah.
So that's the idea. That's
Yeah,
an
yeah.
actual
Now
ongoing
it
business.
is. Now
yeah,
it is.
actually,
Yeah.
it didn't start out like that. It was just basically kind
For
of
fun.
jumping into the you know, culture and everything. And I don't know how long it was until we were in it, until I actually started getting requests to say, hey, I got this costume I want to do for like a convention, or even like Halloween costumes. This is what I normally do most of the time, is make Halloween costumes, but also sometimes comic convention costumes. And it was, yeah, we'll get an email once in a while and say, hey, I want this costume. And I'm like, okay, let's see if I have room enough in my schedule to actually
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
And actually nowadays it's like, oh gosh, I don't think I do. Because it's like I've got like a laundry list of costumes I want to make for myself too. So I'm just like, I really, really want to make stuff for myself again now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So this
do you,
one.
Do you
is-
both have full-time jobs besides
Yeah.
this? So this
Yeah.
is something you do as a passion
Yeah.
in your,
Yeah,
in your
yeah.
spare time.
Yeah.
Right. So this queue can get pretty long of
Yeah.
people requesting.
Yeah.
things,
Yeah,
right?
backlogged and everything. I feel so bad sometimes, but you know, sometimes you just kind of have to say, say no. So
Yeah. Like I had school when, though this is actually a commission. It's not of my own possession, but it's of my own creation. It's like, it's got a metal handle, so if it were actually one that I would weld, it would be made out of plastic, so you know, the tiny little me would be able to carry it. But
you get some
yeah,
nice
this is
It
muscles out of that.
does
This-
look dangerous, even
yeah,
in its current
it's
form.
meant
I
to
just-
look dangerous, but it's all out of foam. I work primarily in foam and some resin pieces here too
So
that are
you molded
hand
even that
sculpted.
headpiece, even the axe part
Yeah,
of this, right?
yeah. So this one is just, you know, I make patterns. I sort of blow up a screenshot of something and then try to get it one-to-one scale, like using my palms, or like, okay, this guy looks to be about 5'6'2", so in relation to his body, it could be this tall, you know, kind of a deal. And, you know, just sort of just trace over it, and then you make your own patterns and, you know, just
So
do
how
things.
does one mold foam? I mean, what process do you go through to create that axe head?
Yeah, so this is a combination of things. I have the really cheap or inexpensive craft foam that you can get from Joann or Michael's or any craft store.
Or even the dollar store, I just
Or
found out.
Dollar store has craft
Even
foam.
better.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. Guess who's gonna go over there? And you just some of the pieces I have to individually cut out. Like this one is 6 individual pieces sort of glued together. And then some of these are just folded over, and some of them I stack, like the EVA foam that's about this thick, you can stack and then sculpt it. And then there's foam in a can where you can just spray like a really gross looking blob and then
Sculpt it.
Hope
sculpt
it comes
it.
out
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to get it even with the foam out of a can, but and then sometimes you can do like mold sculpts here, like what I did with this. I guess you would call it a deer head or something, because I don't think I could have done that in foam. So it's
So
like
how did you do that particular?
This one I took. You can take different types of clay, and I like to use the stuff that doesn't dry out. It's like the plasticine, the stuff you use in kindergarten. You know,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
smells really good. You can't eat it, but it smells good.
Yeah.
And you know, just sculpt
Darn
it,
it.
and then kind of like take what they call like a what would you call that?
Like a tool?
Rubber, like a rubber molding. Yeah, and you just
Okay.
once you're done sculpting, you layer that over and let it dry, and then you just peel it off. and then you take maybe a resin or something and pour it into your little mold and pull it out, and
There it is.
yeah, and there it is. And then you can paint it and, you know, do,
whatever
do
you
fun
want.
things.
So,
like,
so
yeah.
that particular piece, what fantasy realm is that from?
This one is from Game of Thrones,
Ah.
and I think it's from a recent season, like season 6 or something. It's like Gendry's Warhammer. So yeah, I'm like, well, I'm a girl, so.
And so, what, how would you use that in your own life? I mean, where would you take that with you?
This right now, oh, this one actually, I think it's gone to the Renaissance Fair. My friend who commissioned this from me, he also went. Where else did he go? He went somewhere, like I think it was Dragon Con, and then we did a gig in Brewers Miller Park for Game of Thrones night, and he brought it there his first time, and he was really proud of it. He was holding it, and it was.
He got it into the stadium.
Yeah, I know.
Yes,
It's like,
yes, you'd think
dude,
that would
how
be
did
a
you
band,
just
Purses now.
walk through the metal detectors with this thing? And then in Los Angeles in a couple weeks, we're going to their Comic-Con, and they usually have a prop competition, and I was thinking of submitting this to it. So
Keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah.
It might win.
Yeah,
and I think, Lisa, you sell your Wonder Woman stuff too, right?
I do. Actually,
So-
just the headpieces and this guy
Are
right
these
here.
bracelets or what would you
Oh
call
yeah,
these?
those are also
arm-
bracelets
yeah.
or bracers or
Yeah.
arm
Are
guards.
these Wonder
yeah.
Woman as well?
Those are from Willow, for Val Kilmer's character in that
Ah,
one, yeah.
Okay.
And then yours are hiding behind your
Yeah.
glasses,
Oh, yeah.
sneaky girl.
I think I can actually get one of them on.
Now these are
Hold on.
Wonder Woman, yeah.
And these have special properties for Wonder
Oh,
Woman.
yeah.
Don't they deflect bullets or
Yeah,
something?
and I guess they give her powers too.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
like some sort
Yeah.
of,
Some kind of lightning power. I don't know.
yeah, yeah. But mostly to deflect
But aren't you supposed to be
bullets.
the experts? I mean,
Yeah.
when you make
Oh,
this
I don't
stuff?
know.
Well,
like,
the movie is turning to be out to be different than the comics, because before
yeah.
there's like a backstory about the bracelets,
Mhm.
and you know, the women wear it to remind themselves of the hardships that they had with the men, I guess. And in the movie they don't talk about that, so they're
Right.
just like bracelets of victory,
Yeah.
and not, you know,
And they
any
have these magical
backstory.
qualities that we don't know where they come from. So
They're just harnessed within her, and they sort of come out through their arms, I guess.
So do you ever think about turning this into a full-time business? That this would be
Well,
what you
for
do?
this one, maybe.
well, actually, it's not really a full-time business, more like part-time, because I also have a regular paying job and everything. But I do actually, on occasion, I had in the past more so, costume design for theater, and a little bit dabbled in film too, so like independent films. So yeah,
Yes,
it could be a little bit hard, though. I know
Well,
some
though
people
we've
that
had
do.
other people on this show in previous years who have done not the same, but similar lines, like making clothing of particular time periods, for example, which surprised me greatly because I didn't know that there was enough market for it, you know, late
Right.
18th,
Oh,
Right.
yeah,
late 19th
definitely.
Very
century.
niche market.
With all
Yeah,
the
but
reenactments.
there is a market for that, and this particular person was able to make a living doing that because there was enough demand
Yeah,
for that kind of
yeah,
clothing that she could keep herself going with it.
Yeah, yeah.
So there you go. You know, the opportunity
Find a
is
niche.
there for
yeah,
you, right?
yeah.
Right. And so then we have this armor here down
Oh,
on
yeah.
the floor,
Yeah,
and this looks formidable.
yeah. Goes with the armbands over here.
Oh, okay, so this
Yeah.
would have been a replica of
All
what
one
Val
piece.
Kilmer was
Yeah,
wearing, right?
Not quite as daunting as he is in his armor,
Yeah.
but
Well, fortunately, this is very lightweight. I
yeah,
think.
yeah, that's
Imagine.
the deal.
Yes, in real life, this would have been
Not-
metal or
yeah.
something.
Metal and all sorts of heavy chainmail. and-
Leather and
Yes,
really warm and
would have been would have taken a strong man to wear
yes,
it. Right?
yes, yes.
Yes.
I'm
Definitely.
lightweight needs a lightweight armor.
It's going to get
So-
like 50
So
pounds.
what is this made of? then?
That
This
one is also foam. It's like one of those foam mats that you put in the garage to stand on. Yeah,
Oh.
that kind of foam. And you heat seal it, and then you also heat form it too. So if you heat it up with you can use a hair dryer, but it's not as intense. But if you has a heat gun, you can sort of mold it to yourself, so it's a little bit more comfortable, and
Yeah.
you're not like
Stiff as
you
a
know
board.
stiff as a board.
Yeah.
And the bird on the front is, again, layers, kind of like how I did here. Layers and layers of foam, and just hand tooling the detail in there. And
So how long does it take you to create like this particular piece?
that one, I think it was something like, I don't know, 40-something hours over a span of maybe 3 weeks, I want to say.
And has this been worn by someone at a Comic-Con, for
That
example?
was worn by me.
You?
Yes,
All
yes.
right.
Sometimes I dress like a boy.
Actually, sometimes we both dress up
Yeah,
like a boy.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's about fantasy,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
So
very
why
true.
not?
Yeah.
Right? Why be constrained by gender roles?
That's very true.
Right, right.
It helps us delve into different areas of expertise too. So like I do Jareth the Goblin King from the Labyrinth movie, the David Bowie character. And so he's got, these cheekbones and this jaw and, these facial features that I don't have. So I have to like, this tiny little pinpoint nose that I have to like, it's just intense. And also with, we did a Beetlejuice group too, and that's, when you do a blue character or a green
Yeah.
character,
Oh my
you have
gosh.
to make sure you give yourself the cheekbones and everything so you don't look like a cartoon character.
So there
Right.
must be a makeup element of
Oh,
this as
yeah.
well, right?
Absolutely.
It's definitely a learned skill. Because like I myself was not like a makeup artist or anything, so I'm like, apart from putting on my everyday makeup, I'm like, yeah, it can get pretty scary sometimes, and especially when you have to like do like special effects things like scars or like just
Prosthetic-y type
prosthetic-y things
yeah.
like big nose or anything on your face that's not actually part
Part
of your
of your
face.
face.
Yeah, or
Right, right.
no eyebrows or
Right. Oh my
or
gosh.
higher
the
eyebrows.
no eyebrows
or-
thing. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
That's,
yeah. But again, online, like YouTube, you can find a plethora of
Yeah.
tutorials online. And
Well, that's the internet.
she's like, "Hey, Jenny, you gotta check out this one tutorial by." And it's like you learn the most from drag queens, from their
Yeah,
their
yeah.
tutorials online. Like, if anybody knows
Everything.
makeup, I just
And
love,
even like
yeah,
wig
it's
styling
fabulous.
too, like
yeah.
how to do wigs and things. And like I have a wig theatrical wig book or something, and I kind of look at it sometimes for like hairstyling and everything. But then they have actually how to make wigs and things, all sorts of manner of like I don't know, big Victorian or big 18th century wigs and stuff with all these weird structures that you can make and.
So this is a new area you can branch into, wig making.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So tell me a little bit about this wonderful costume that's behind you.
This is from Star Wars. It's Queen Amidala's costume, and I think pretty much 100% made all the patterns myself. And
Is this the one that took you 9 years to figure out?
no, actually, this one was my second Queen Amidala costume that I actually made. It's another of her many costume changes that she had in her in the film, and it was pretty much a bunch of different, actually newly learned skills, like how to hand embroider and how to hand bead and everything. And I actually
You've got pockets in there.
I do have pockets in there. So like this was all the beading just took probably a fair amount of time. I would say at least maybe 80 hours just hand sewing everything.
Wow.
Oh yeah, she mentioned pockets, and that's another one of my sort of if you're like stuck at a convention and you don't have like you don't want to carry around a purse or anything.
That
Sure.
doesn't match your
So
outfit.
I kind of like have to figure out how to work in pockets in all my costumes and make like a practical prop or something.
So
Like my
then,
Book of the Dead.
Yeah.
that probably was not in the actual movie
Right,
costume,
right.
but you need that because you're wearing it all day.
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
need
Like
stuff.
I need some place to put like money and
Right.
like your phone or your keys or something, and people won't see that. So I get really
You
clever.
guys can't show up because it's not part of the costume.
Right, yeah, yeah.
So you not only have to make pockets, they have to be hidden.
Yeah. So like my Book of the Dead is actually built over a box that I can open up and put all my like snacks or money or phone in there, so that I still have the prop but not have like an anachronistic bag. So I wonder if I still have
Don't
anything.
open the box.
Okay.
Don't open that.
Oh,
well,
let me close it for you. But no,
will there be some evil spell if we open
I
the
hope
book?
not. I was like, oh, it happens a lot around here. But yeah, so I just have a hollow out bit here, and
Yeah.
it's just something that where you can just carry it around without people noticing any anachronisms that don't match your costume.
Well, which I'm sure must be important, right?
Yes,
Because-
very much so. Yeah.
yeah.
And never having been to one of these Comic-Cons myself, though I think it's on my list of things I have to do
Oh,
at some
you
point.
should.
Yeah, oh yeah. Everybody
yeah,
should go to these ones.
Well, I would assume that there is a premium on authenticity, right?
Yeah. If you want to, there's the factions that are 100% pure. one-to-one, you know, they have to have it replica and perfection, 100%. And then there are other people like, you know, if this is incorrect, but I'm still enjoying what I'm doing and being in character. And then there's, you know, the people who just put on a Newt Scamander scarf and, you know, and say, hey, I'm supporting my fandom. You know, there's all sorts of people who go. So.
Did you call it, what did you call it? Scarf?
This one, I think, is Harry Potter. This is Newt Scamander's scarf, right?
Yeah. Fantastic Beasts movie.
Yeah, she also knits,
I also
which
knit.
I don't do.
I can hand knit, but secret, it is, I machine knit.
Yeah.
I have my own personal little hand machine knitting thing, so it makes it a lot faster to go make these little things.
Sure.
I actually make and sell these, so yeah,
It's very warm. If you want to know, it's very warm.
yeah. I couldn't stand being
squishy.
It's actually made of wool,
Yes,
so you
yes.
could wear that in the winter. And
Just not under these lights,
No,
because
I know.
it'll strangle you.
5 minutes into the lights, and it'll be like, oh, I feel like I'm being hugged by a Wookiee.
And so then we've got other things here, like this headdress is really fantastic. That was also Queen Amidala
Yes,
from Star
it goes
Wars?
with this guy here. And basically, it's a base with just layers of cardboard, and like, hey, you can get really very thrifty and crafty with cardboard. And then I just had, actually, some of this is leftover pieces from my other Queen Amidala headdress. So I'm like, oh, good, I didn't have to buy anymore. So then it was basically kind of getting on the side of, okay, I don't want this to be too expensive for me, and like I gotta kind of like, you know, seal the purse a little bit. So I kind of got pretty creative on making pieces, bits and pieces where I could kind of get away with it. So like these red hanging things were just made from like the wrapping Christmas paper tubes. So I'm just like, yeah, and just cut it in half, and there you go. It's in hollow.
Yeah, probably the one that Queen Amidala wore on the set was probably also hollow. 'Cause if that was weighing too much, you couldn't wear it on the movie set.
No, oh my gosh, I love that. Her little, there's like a feature on with her in this costume, and she's like, oh, how heavy is that? And I was like, as long as I don't get brain damage, I'll be okay. So yeah, it's like maybe 3 pounds, I think.
This one is?
Yeah, it's not as bad, but if it's on your head for about, I don't know, 9 hours, it starts to cut into you, and like, okay. But
You wear a beret for 9 hours and you get to you after a while.
Yeah.
You can take it off, too.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Where's the bathroom? But yeah, a lot of different things like foil embossing. I actually had like this little sort of embossing folder. It has like a design on the other side, one on the other side, and you just kind of like run it. I did a very, I don't know, like a very thrifty thing to do. I have a presser, but I used a rolling pin and just kind of like get it embossed into the foam. And lots of hand painting and sculpting and all sorts of things.
So how often do you collaborate where you'll do some
All
piece?
the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of the creations end up
It's
being
mostly
joint.
off of her list, or
Pretty much,
I'll be at work and, we're recording this, so this might be not a good idea to say, but it's like I'll be at work, and on my 15-minute break,
Yes.
I will have this crazy idea and say, hey, Lisa, what do you think of this? And she'll be like, oh, okay, let's see if that will work first. And yeah. So it's mostly we just play off of each other. Yeah.
And then you'll make some pieces of it, you'll make some other pieces of it.
She usually just makes, it
Mostly,
started out with, she did all of the stuff, and then around,
I need some help,
like,
Jenny, please help me.
yeah, and then like 5 years ago, she's just like, can you make your costume? I'm like, I don't know, can I?
Only one way to find out.
Yeah,
right?
and I
If you
did
can
find
sew.
out, I'm like, oh, I can actually sew, but straight lines.
Yeah.
And I need help with patterns, but now I have I work off simplicity patterns because
Which is okay. It's okay
Yeah,
to work
I'm
off a
just like,
commercial pattern.
okay, I guess this is simple, I don't know. Or I trace over my own garments because I'm like, I don't know how to do that.
Well, how does anybody learn anything? You just start doing
Just
it.
do it.
Right?
Yeah.
Put your hands in and do it.
Yes. And sooner or later, you make lots of mistakes, and that's how you learn, right?
Yeah,
very
especially
true.
like with these headdresses, and like pretty much all of it was like,
One shot.
yeah, like you only can go so far with watching like YouTube videos or anything, but the thing to actually just to do it and see if you can do it.
Yeah.
So I guess we can.
Or to see how other people do it and say, well, I think I could improve it in this way. Maybe let's try to do that, or do something that no one has ever done before. Like my little teeny weeny code breaker button
which is
over there.
kind of hiding. It's scared.
Yes.
That was also another Star Wars thing.
Yeah.
From, I think this is from The Last Jedi. Yeah. And so there's this one tertiary character, and he is supposed to be this sort of like red, well, he turns out to be a red herring. I guess Maz Kanata said, hey, she goes to the good guys. Like, you have to find this guy who has this codebreaker pin, and he will tell you how to get to this next step. And he has all the secrets that you will learn, or whatever it is. And it turns out he had no point to in the story at all. But there are people who are wanting this pin. And it's like, okay, let's see if anybody is making these. And, you know, Star Wars, who is it? Lucasfilm, and I think it's Disney now, is not selling any of these. So, so I was like, oh, I'll make it. I have an idea.
the market on that one.
So anytime you see somebody dressed like this codebreaker guy with this pin and a white jacket,
there's like a 90% chance that's your pin.
Yeah, so it's like I'm outfitting a small army of codebreakers, master codebreakers.
Do you have to worry about trademark infringement? Or
This one,
copyright?
I try to make sure, because yes, you do. Sometimes there are people who have received like cease and desist things, but if you're using copyrighted imagery, like
And trademarks.
And trademarks, yeah.
Or anything like stamp marks that
Yeah.
they
Right,
have.
right.
This one is not exactly like the
So it's different
pin.
enough.
It's different enough. Like they're much rounder edges, and I think it is even sort of like an enameled thing around a chassis, and the length of the stems are a lot different. And I don't think it's the exact same color either. So I marketed it as being inspired by. So it's not, and also like a little addendum where it's like no infringement is intended, and this is only for costumes and people who want to. It's not. I'm not marking it as the actual thing.
Right.
And that's one of the things that you have to be careful about when you're selling replica things, or at least trying to sell things that look similar.
So one more skill you've had to learn is the legal side.
Yeah,
of it,
so
right?
definitely the legal side, because
Right.
there was like, especially with the Harry Potter stuff, like there's like this big map thing, the Marauders map, and that has a lot of iconography on it. That is, if you reprint that, if you don't have permission from Warner Brothers, they will send you a
Cease and desist,
yes,
and
they
they'll
will.
get nasty if you don't.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
please don't do that again. It's like, okay, yeah.
Where do you store all this stuff?
Find a place that has lots of closets,
Yeah.
which I did, and then use part of your garage storage units.
Well, believe it or not, we're just about out of time, so I'll have to come and see this garage sometime.
Yeah,
No,
oh God, don't come to
fascinating.
my garage. It looks like a mess.
That's all right. That's all right. That's all right.
But I want to thank you both. This has been fascinating. I've learned
thank
so much
you,
about
thank you.
how this stuff is made. And as I say, I'll have to come to a Comic-Con. So.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so Lisa, Jenny, thank you so much for
you.
being here.
Thank
It's
you
been a
very
pleasure. And thank you for joining us once again on Public Perspective. I'm your host, Kevin McDermott. You can find us every Saturday night at 8 on Comcast, Channel 19. Find us on the web at publicperspective.tv. And who knows, maybe you'll see us at Comic-Con as well. So till next time, thank you and good night.